In life, there are many discussions that won't see one side fold on. Republican versus Democrat, Coke versus Pepsi, etc. But one that pops up around my circle every now and again is anime versus manga, more specifically, anime adaptations of said manga. Now, some of you may remember when I reviewed the anime adaptation of this back in 2017, when the most we had to worry about was the current US president, when the War on Terror would finally fucking end, and Berserk 2016 getting a second season. Well, it turns out the anime adaptation only adapted the first half of the manga, and it's not like it was because it was airing around the same time. See, the anime premiered months after the manga ended. So why did the anime only adapt the first half and not announce another season? Let's rip this band-aid off. So, first half of the Usagi Drop manga is the same as my thoughts on the anime minus the animated portions and the music. Daikichi and Rin are still great, the side characters are meh, and the story is simple but effective. It's at the start of Volume 5, however, where things go the fuck off the rails. Volume 5 gives us a 10-year time skip, and we see a 16-year-old Rin trying to navigate the horrors of teenage life in high school, as well as trying to find her birth mom. Now, if this was just a story about the pains of raising a teenager as a single dad, that'd be one thing. The problem is, that's not where the story goes. The direction it ended up going in is fucking shit, to put it lightly. But, before I delve into that insanity, let me use the fall a bit by stating that the new side characters are also, not interesting or deep, but they're fine as characters and serve the purpose of the story overall well enough. The mom is there to provide the exposition on her affiliation with Rin's dad, as well as to explain a plot point I'll rant about later. Koiki serves the role of a love interest / friend to Rin well enough, etc. As for the art style and paneling for the time skip portion, it also holds up pretty well. The character models and anatomy are consistently good, the shading is nice, and the backgrounds are also good. And now that I've read the manga, I can understand the use of the watercolor art style for the anime version, because the color portions resemble that watercolor style, and it looks great. And that's about it for Ease in the Fall, because now it gets fucking turbulent. This is probably the thing everyone who knows of this series is already familiar with and talked about to death, but fuck it! I'm annoyed about how idiotic this plot point is, so I'm preaching to the choir on this fucking complaint. So, it is revealed in Chapter 54 by Rin's mom that Rin was adopted by her dad, and as such shares no blood relation to the Kaga family. Now, prior to this point, Rin was developing feelings for Daikichi, her adopted dad. Now, to be fair to Daikichi, he does make it clear in the next chapter that he needs 2 years to think on it, and he heavily pushes her to find someone else other than him. But it's like taking an antacid after vomiting. The ick is still there and in spades, but it's 95% bad instead of 100. Oh boy, small fucking favors. And I say 95% and not like 90% or lower, because he still gets with her in the final chapter and calls her his bride in the extra final chapter of the series. I fucking hate it here. What the fuck? Now, some might say, oh, well, they're not blood related. And before I go pound those straw men into the ground, I want to point out that he raised her as his fucking daughter since she was 6. I know Japan has an interesting history, to put it nicely, with fetishes, and also a very fucked up history with incest, but this is 9 layers of disgusting, like, come the fuck on! And it's so frustrating that this is how the fucking story ends. Because I love reading slice-of-life stories. Sometimes I don't want to read a long-running deep story or the 90th forgettable shonen battle manga that focuses more on flashy battles and great characters. Sometimes I just want to read something that'll give me a good source of serotonin, even if it's for a little bit. That's why I love reading stories like Komi Can't Communicate, Spy Family, the Skill Teacher Tagaki series, Way of the House Husband, or sometimes I'll throw on a fucking episode of Chi Sweet Home to get that serotonin as I just kick back to watch some wholesome stuff. You know, to balance out what I watch sometimes. I love this wholesome stuff. Inject that serotonin into my fucking veins. Like, just give me some cute shit to watch for a little bit. So to see something as wholesome as the first half of the Usagi Drop series dip so fucking far into garbage in the second half, it fucking sucks to see. Because I don't feel that wholesome spark, nor that serotonin when reading this half of the story. I feel fucking sick to my stomach, and I want to take a fucking chemical bath instead. However, this is not the only story Yumi Unita has written. Since Usagi Drop came out, she also wrote Para Para Days, which doesn't seem to have an English translation, so I have no idea on how good or bad it is. She also wrote a 2-volume story called Sleeping Beauty, or Slumbering Beauty, depending on the country. She wrote Yoningarashi, which was pretty good and has similar wholesome vibes as the first part of Usagi Drop, just without the adoption part and no 10-year time skip, and so on and so forth. So, while I do hate the second half of this fucking series, and would rather recommend the anime adaptation over this crap, The author has written much, much better manga before, and since she created Usagi Drop, so I'm not gonna hold this over the author's head that much. Yes, it's fucking stupid. And yes, it's fucking gross. But I'm willing to grant some grace to the author because this is the only work of hers that has this shit. And every author does dumb shit at one point. Hell, some authors do objectively worse than what Yumi Unita did, by having said authors engaging in criminal shit, and they are forgiven by some of their fans for some fucking reason, and even some mangaka are still willing to work with them years later. The punchline is, I fucking hate Nobuhiro Watsuki. Anyways, if the worst mistake you can make at work is a fucking gross idea for a character, then while I don't support that idea, it's a case where you could easily look back on it and cringe, but also have a laugh about that stupid idea. We all make our fair share of mistakes, whether it be as video creators, as people, and especially in this case, as authors. But we take the L, we learn from it, and then we go mock/insult the objectively horrible authors that engaged in crime. Araki is based. So, yeah, Yumi Unita did a fucked up thing. But she's shown in her works before and since then that this was just a one-off mistake, and that she's still a great author. So anyways, I think I gave enough words to make this not as short as the review of the anime, so it's time I get into my closing phrase. So that concludes this review. I'm David Grimm, and thank you for watching.